Hey, how are you all? Welcome to our September meeting. It's so good to see all of you. Is there anybody who would like to come on mic and open us up with a word of prayer? Any volunteers? Anyone?
I typed in chat, I will.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I see it now. Thanks, Michelle.
Father, you are so good to us, and we just come together today to work through some details so that we can bring you glory in all that we do as we participate in your growing and changing of the students that you have entrusted into our classrooms. Bless this time together and continue to build our teacher community and that we may glorify you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So can you all see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So the first thing I wanted to ask about, you guys like this picture of a pantry? It's not real clear. It looks very organized, doesn't it? Do your pantries look like that? You know, I like the look of this picture, but it bothers me just a little bit because as soon as you remove like one of those bottles, it doesn't look like that anymore. And how do you keep a pantry looking like that? But I popped that up there to ask you all, what is your best tip for staying organized with online teaching? Do you have one? Do you have something that you always do that works? I know you are a very organized group. So type into the chat or come on mic and share with us. Do you always grade at the certain time? Having a calendar, oh, that's nice. And grading the day after assignments are due. Yeah, the Google Calendar is huge, isn't it? I use it too. Do you put tasks on your Google Calendar? You can put tasks on and you can put them on certain days with little check boxes if you're into check boxes. Starting the recording right at the beginning, right on the title slide. I love that. Sometime we're going to have Amy Craven show us her color coding system for her Google Calendar. I've seen it before. It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely, Nikki. Now, Christine said, as soon as your class is over, you make the Kahoot game. Is that so that you can kind of have everything fresh in your mind? Beautiful. You keep a list. I've actually been going over some organizational tips with my girls because, you know, this is the point in time where things aren't as new and maybe things kind of start to fall into the cracks a little bit. And so it's kind of important to keep those on there. A list of classes, yes, absolutely. Do you guys use paper planners or do you use all online calendars? Paper. Paper. Right? There's something about using a paper planner. I love that. Any other tips or tricks that you all have to stay organized? I'm assuming that you're not all out there just flying by the seat of your pants. Please say you're not. Writing it out is important. Good. Well, we have just a few things that I want to cover today. One of them I don't have a slide for because it's just kind of recently come about, and you're probably all getting notifications from Dawala about your payments. Is that correct? And one of the things that it says is we're getting ready to change everything up and you need to contact your system administrator. Have you gotten those? Okay, so if you didn't, that's okay because I've gotten one and then I haven't gotten the rest of them. And the one that I got was a couple of months ago. But I want you to know that everything is staying the same through the end of the year with Dawala, so your payments should be fine. And then we're actually looking into the possibility of paying in a different way after the first of the year. Not that we will go back to paper checks, so you don't have to worry about that. It will still be a different sort of online payment, but Susan Dallum, who is on top of these things, is looking into different ways or different methods to get that information to you. Okay, one thing that I wanted to ask you, and I'd actually really like you to come on mic and share. What do you all do as far as whether or not you keep on your cameras for your kids? Do they talk back in class? And I don't mean like talk back in an inappropriate, disrespectful way, but do they answer questions? Do you have discussions going all the time? How do you work that? Are they on camera? You have them turn their camera off? I'd really like to hear what you're doing in your online class and how that works. So just go ahead and come on mic and tell us.
All right, I'll tell you what I do.
Okay.
It varies on my classes. So my middle school class, I have them interact on the whiteboard. So I spend the first couple of weeks teaching them how to use the tools as a part of class. And we do that for about the first 2/3 or 3/4 of the class. By the end of the class, I'm pretty much just lecturing and they're taking it all. But I ease them into that. My high school kids, very little interaction on the whiteboard. And for none of my kids at all do I do cameras. Ever.
Okay. So do you have them turn them off or do they just automatically do that?
My classroom is set up so that cameras are not on when they enter the room.
Okay.
They have to manually turn them on. I wish there was a way to lock that, like I can lock the mute button.
Right.
So if you ever talk to Zoom, by all means, tell them that'd be nice to have a checkbox for that, like you do for the mute button.
Yes.
And I do occasionally, I'll have a kid who'll turn their camera on, but I keep my face in my own view so I can see when the box goes from 1 to 2 on my screen, you know, when all of a sudden it's 2 people viewing, and I just, usually without saying a word, I'll just turn their video off. Occasionally I'll just comment and say, you know, oh, we're not going to be using cameras today, and I'll just turn it off and go right on with my instruction.
Interesting. And okay, so just something to say about what Chris just said. You might have something completely different. You might have a smaller class or a different age class, and those are the kind of things that I want to hear because it's really a matter of preference.
Okay, I'll talk next.
Okay.
Okay, so I have my kids keep them on all the time, so we're completely opposite. But of course, I teach history, and then I teach the C.S. Lewis class. So my subjects, I like to interact with them. I talk to them a lot. We play review games at the end of all my classes, so I like to hear them. I also find it helpful to have their cameras on because I ask a lot of questions, and if I see a kid who's maybe staring off or like not paying attention, that's the one that I'll call on, kind of bring them back around.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to keep them on. I feel like it kind of makes me feel like I'm in a regular class. I come to class 10 minutes early and then have like a little 5-minute break time in between the time period. And I let them talk to one another, so it kind of builds their camaraderie too. So, but
right.
Again, this preference.
Nice. I have a funny story to tell you. My daughter Lydia is in Nikki's history class, and she was like, okay, look, I need to take the computer in the other room because I can't have people walking behind me and I have to leave my camera on. And I said, that's okay. I don't want to be walking behind you on camera. Others?
I was just going to say that it depends on the class. Can you hear me okay? I'm having a lot of interference.
I can. Yeah,
okay.
I can hear you.
So it depends on the class. Some of my classes are little, so I like them to keep it on as much as possible. We always have like a shy one in the class, but they seem to be a little bit more willing when we get into breakouts. So I always encourage them to put on their cameras and talk to each other in breakouts and make it like a real little small group. In class, I have found also it just depends on the maturity. I think as somebody mentioned, Mr. Langang, there is a young man who comes to class with sunglasses on, and I thought it was just like a one-time thing the first time he did it, and I was like, okay, that's cute, you know, and I kind of let it go. And then today he came with sunglasses and was like doing a little rock and roll like jam out session, and I just finally just had to say, oh, you know, if you're planning to do that during class, please go ahead and shut off your camera. Like, you know, try to say it as nicely as I could. I had another girl during while we had all of our cameras on, she decided to take her hood and pull it entirely over her face and pull the drawstring. So these youngins, you know, they're just the maturity level's not there. But I love having face-to-face interaction, so I try to get them to turn their cameras on whenever I can.
Does anybody actually leave their mics on all the time? Yes, no.
Absolutely not. So I teach math and government, and so in my government class, they share what they read the previous week, and they're supposed to give me like 3 to 5 highlights, and those they do on audio. I've hinted that they should turn their cameras on, but I haven't been pushy about it, but I would prefer it. But it's kind of fun. And I have a really teeny tiny math class, like really small. And one week they both had their cameras on like the whole time. So it's kind of nice. Well, like now I see you all nodding. So it's nice because you get that like visual feedback that's easier than just them, typing, yes, I understand in chat. So, and some of mine prefer it. And my office hour is actually when they're more willing to come in. But I'm like, none of my classes are huge. So I'm like, it's not that big a deal. Just instead of typing me, pages, just turn your mic on and say it. It's a lot faster. But some of them are just quiet, but
so
kind of a mixture.
For those of you who did that, who do that, like Michelle, do you make it mandatory? Do you just say, okay, now's the time when everybody needs to come on mic and share your 3 things that you read?
Yes, and I just call on them one by one. And I have some who don't, well, occasionally, like they'll be in their car or whatever, and so they type, and then, I'm trusting when they say they can't, like their mic isn't working that day or not that day, but I have some who've never successfully talked on mic. But I haven't been pushy about it. I want to be, but some days I'm just too nice for my own good. So, but I think that they start to see that they enjoy hearing the student share as opposed to listening to me read what the student is sharing. So
yeah,
I think that helps. But so my government class is much more verbal, much more conversational, that kind of thing. But oh yeah, I like that too. I'm reading what Jamie's typing. So it's just kind of a mixture, but I wish mine would actually use at least their mics more, because I think they would be able to respond faster than typing out what they're trying to say. But yeah, we do a lot of whiteboard interaction and sharing, and it is interesting. I'm finding some of mine are tuning out. I'm calling it course maintenance, and I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again, which some of you saw I whined about in the, it's been a really whiny week. Just ask Carrie and Melissa. So people whining to me and then me whining to them. But yeah, as we kind of get through some of the kinks, but I prefer in government if they just pop them on when they're speaking. So, but yes, I think I would go crazy with hearing the vacuum in the back of one person's room, and
that can be a
one of my students has talking doors, and so whenever somebody opens like the garage door, the machine it announces that the garage door, and I'm like, yeah, if all of mine I would lose my mind,
right?
So those of you who can do that, props to you. But yeah,
right. I don't know if anybody that actually leaves their mic on or has their kids leave their mics on the entire time. Remember how we used to talk about how chat can be distracting? I think it would be even more distracting if you had mics on all the time. However, I guess if you had, 2 or 3 people and it was, like Rhiannon said, a book group discussion or something like that, then I can see that. Anybody else that would like to share what they do and how they manage it?
Okay, this is Margie. Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. I don't have my camera set up. I've been on camera all day. I just want to chill and not look professional.
That's okay.
Yeah. Anyways, I do, in the variety of courses, I always have students have to come on mic and speak. And occasionally I have some who continue to say, I don't have mic on this computer, et cetera, et cetera. But some of the kids I have, like if I have a 9 o'clock class, they're on the, Oregon or California, and they may be in bed or have, not not have brushed their hair yet. So I don't make them come on camera. I do like it when they come on camera, but every class I teach has some oral portion. You're answering a question orally, or you're reporting, you know, doing an oral report, or in French they're saying. And in French, some of the things I do, they have to do motions to the action, so they have to have their camera on so I can see what they're doing. But I can't have them on all the time because it distracts me.
Right.
Each other.
Right. I would feel that way more so. Well, like now looking at all of you, I'm loving having people go, like, oh yeah, I get that. Or yeah, and a smile, or, you know, something like that. So I feel like it would maybe be more distracting to have a mic on the whole time. But having this on, as long as there's nothing in the background, it's good. Excellent. Anybody else before I switch slides?
I was just going to say, one of the like if you have a larger class, you can't see everyone. So sometimes if you have the microphones on, the kids think that you're seeing their hand raised, and they think that you're like seeing their facial expressions. And I'm like, where are you? You know, like, so that's just one thing to keep in mind if you do it with the larger classes.
That's a good point.
Remember that you can't actually see all of them. So they're probably like, you know, miming to you, and you don't know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point too.
I think it's good. It's Emily.
Yeah.
I'm new. Hi, I'm Emily. But our culture too, I know I have a teenage daughter and actually in college now, but it's very easy for, you know, teenagers to just resort to chatting or to texting. And so I don't, of course, I am at the class and I'm very new to online teaching. So I do, most of it's through chat, but I think it's important for them to speak throughout the class, because I think just in our culture, my daughter would text long conversations to her friends. I'm like, how did you texted that whole thing? The whole conversation is in texting? Like, that was pretty deep. And she goes, well, that's how we communicate. And so, which we know that, but I think it is really important to get that verbal out. So I try to, however I can, you know, like someone said on there, you know, reading the slides. I think it's just so important for them not to lose that and not to resort to the very easy, the chat backs all the time.
Right.
For what
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And Michelle wrote in the chat a plug for Jamie Anderson's speech class. Absolutely. Okay, good. So I want to show you just a couple of things. One of them is I just want to make sure if you have a full year class that your grade book is set up correctly in PowerTeacher. So I'm going to use Emily's class as an example of this, and let me just pull open my screen share for this. Tell me when you can see it. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so with this, when you go to settings, you want to go to traditional grade calculations. And since this is a full year class, this should be what you all see if you have full year classes. You're going to see this F1 and then S1 and S2. And so the way we have things set up is we do the storing of grades twice for full year classes. So once in December and once in May. And we have it set up like that so that if a person drops or adds halfway through, they can still get a half of a credit rather than 0 credit for that half of a semester. So S1 is the first semester, S2 is the second semester, and then the final grade is F1. Okay, so don't get confused and go like, okay, F1 is fall and S1 is spring. So that's not how it is, S1 and S2. So this actually means that when you're setting this up, S1 and S2 have to be category weighting. And then F1 has to be the term weighting. And let me actually drag you guys out of the way for just a second. Now, with the term weighting, you're going to have it be S1 is 50%, S2 is 50% of the whole F1 grade. Does that make sense? And so if you set up your category weighting under this F1, it's set up incorrectly. So your category weighting is only going to go under the S as in Sam 1 and 2. And then your final grade will be the term weighting. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Any questions on that? It does. It also gives them a fresh start in January. So like, let's say they just kind of blew off fall. It also gives them a fresh start in January so that when they're seeing that grade book for S2, then they're seeing just those grades. Even though it's going to be averaged later, there's just something mental about being able to have that fresh start if they need to. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so the next thing I have to tell you is this is kind of exciting and kind of makes me nervous, but my husband and I are going to be gone next week, and we are going out to Yellowstone in Montana. And so we're going for our 30th anniversary, so I just wanted to let you guys know that I'll be kind of out of pocket for next week. And so we're going to be doing some very adventurous things for us. And one of them is going ATV riding in the mountains by ourselves. Does that sound scary or does that sound fun? Because it said that we might see grizzly bears. I was like, wait, what? Scary and fun. So prayers would be appreciated. Prayers for the kids here back home. And just know that we're leaving on Sunday and we'll be gone through the next Monday. Do you think that's necessary, Chris? Bear spray? I thought it was, and my husband said, no, we don't need bear spray. And I was like, I think we might need bear spray. You're out kind of that way out west. Do you see bear very often? If you're hiking, you might in the mountains. Okay, good. I will, right? Be prepared. Absolutely. So, the last thing oh boy, the last thing that I want to share with you is, you remember that I told you that the what did Carrie do wrong was stopping, and the what did teachers do wrong is starting? I got a great example of this week, thanks to Margie. Now, sometimes you can do all the best planning in the world, and things still go wrong in the background, like the phone might ring or something like this. So I'm actually going to play you just a little clip of a video, and you can hear what happened. So hang on just a second here, and let me pull it up. And she sent me the clip, and it's entitled "Don't Do This." And if you have one, please send it. So hang on. It's only going to let me show it in a smaller screen on YouTube because it's a YouTube video. And it's very short, and then we'll close. So let me know when you can see that. Yes? Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to play it.
Yes, rise, yeah. And then it goes into the abyss.
Can you hear it?
That's where settling collects. Okay, now who said miracles? When I'm talking about water, and I'm going to have some, I haven't got a dog file. I'm going to have somebody, just a minute.
Has that happened to you guys before? Anything like that? A dog fight? Margie, what did you do? Were you just off for just a second and then you came back on? Can you come on and tell us?
Yeah, that was it was so crazy. It was 2 days before my daughter got married, and the groom had just arrived with their dog, and put it in a house with my dog, and they gave them bones to keep them quiet, and they were leaving to go shopping, and their dog has food aggression issues, was attacking my dog. And so I just left and went and yelled and caught them in the driveway and said, I don't know what I said. Come get this dog. I put him in the crate. Oh no, I put their dog in the crate, and she howled for the rest of the class. So, but I couldn't do anything about it because the kids had left. That's what it was. So the dog and the kids are saying, "Poor dog." I'm saying, she's not a poor dog. She attacked my dog.
So sometimes you plan for the best, but actually you reacted very quickly in turning your sound off and taking care of that. So that was excellent. That was excellent. Good. Okay. Any questions before we stop? I know this was a short meeting. And if you have questions about setting up your gradebook or anything like that at this point, let me know. Anything you've got? If not, this is week 5, right? It's a great fraction. End of week 5, 1/3 of the way through. Excellent. Well, keep up the good work, everybody. And as always, let me know if you have any questions, and if there's a little delay when when you're trying to get a hold of me next week. Hopefully it won't be because we got attacked by a bear. Hopefully it'll just be an internet issue. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.